What's up, everybody? Thank you so much for joining us back here on the channel. I'm so glad you guys enjoyed my painting video. Today we're going to be doing a narrated version without the music. I've slowed the clips down a little bit just so I can kind of keep up with what I'm saying. So basically, first things first here, my process is just sort of getting getting all the right shapes in all the right spaces. That's the first step, to a successful painting is just getting all the right shapes in the right places. They don't have to be the exact shapes, and they don't have to be in the exact right places. But if you can sort of just start with a likeness, start with a little bit of proportion, a little bit of shading. Don't start with a lot of detail. I mean, that's my advice. I used to start my paintings with a lot of detail, but you don't want to rely on detail, first thing you're painting, because you're going to often end up having to change things. Maybe something's in the wrong spot. Maybe something has to be adjusted. So don't start with detail. Just start with proportion. Start with shapes. Start with shading. Start with blobs. There's a lot of painters out there that I see that are even better at that idea than I am. They can just, start working with form and start, rubbing blobs of paint everywhere, but there's no detail whatsoever, and they're just kind of building up layers of tone. And that's kind of what I'm attempting to get to in my painting creations, but I'm just not quite experienced enough to do that. So I sort of have to rely a little bit on detail. And there's not, you have to have a little bit of detail, in terms of, and I don't mean explicit detail, but I just mean shapes, proportion, a little bit of likeness, just so you have a sort of an idea, a little blueprint of where you're going to go. So in this oil painting, I'm just using oil paint. Obviously, I start with purple. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a second, but I like to start with dark colors, just to kind of get, so things kind of glow from within, so to speak. Working with oil paint, like I said, with odorless mineral spirits. And as the levels build up, I start using something called liquid, which is basically like a fine art painting medium that speeds up the process of your paint drying. Because if anybody is familiar with oil paint, it can take weeks or months to dry depending on how thick the paint is. So I definitely overdid it on the liquid in this painting. I'm having a little trouble with the shape of that eye there, So that's the thing. That's why you don't want to start with a lot of detail, my friends, is because there's always going to be some mistake. There's always going to be, and sort of my rationale behind coloring the eyes all dark purple like that is just to sort of get that eye socket sort of vibe. That way it looks, there's something more to lay the paint on. There's something a little more that's going to have some shading behind it than just an outline of like an almond, like an eye shape. You know what I'm saying? So it's real important just to start with the likeness. And it's very blobby. It's very watery. It's almost like a watercolor, but you can really see the beauty of how you start a painting. And that's kind of what I want to show you guys in this narration video, is that it's not really all that hard what I'm doing. I mean, yeah, it is hard. It takes a lot of practice to learn proportion, to learn shapes, and to learn how to work with paint. But in the grand scheme of things, it's not really that hard to do any of this stuff. It just takes a lot of inspiration. It takes obsession. It takes a little bit of drive and a little bit of practice, but all in all, anybody can do this. Picasso once said we're all artists, when we're kids, but as we grow older, we get, we kind of lose that sense of what it means to be an artist, and you kind of have to relearn that. So we're, kind of working in the shape. This is the most exciting stage of the painting for me, because it's like the possibilities are endless. What I mean? It's like you're at the beginning of the race, and you've got this whole tremendous amount of potential ahead of you. You just have to believe in yourself. That's really what it comes down to. And I just love this process of this stage of the painting, because it's like everything's kind of outlined, and you don't have to necessarily get bogged down with the detail. And I just love that feeling of the loose paint kind of going across the canvas, and just sort of the washy watercolor dream-like vibe that you get from this. I mean, you can even build up a whole painting just kind of doing a washy style like this. But I really, really wanted to really break the walls down in this painting with more detail, more realistic sort of, more realistic sort of vibe. And I definitely think we achieved that, so to speak. We definitely got closer to my vision. It's very classical, in the way that it looks. Now, obviously, if, so going back to what I was saying a couple of minutes ago, it's not really all that hard, but at the same time, it's not easy. And at the same, also on the same side of that token, I don't really exactly know what I'm doing half the time. I mean, I feel like early in the painting stage, I know pretty well what I'm doing, but as the layers build up, the paint changes. I mean, it's all related. I mean, you have to kind of, I guess what I'm trying to get at here is like if I had the money and I had the resources to go to like an expensive, oil painting atelier like training school, that would probably be really beneficial to my art style. But at the same time, there's things that you can't learn at like, an art atelier. There's things you can't learning from some master. I mean, yeah, if I would, it's my dream to someday have like a mentor, or maybe go to the Angel Academy, in Florence, to study the real master techniques of the oil painters, of the past. But it's not to say you can't learn things on your own. The good news is that it's all that sort of positive reinforcement. Like, yeah, you're self-taught. Yeah, you can learn on your own. Yeah, you can watch YouTube videos. But the bad news is that you literally have to learn it on your own because there's nobody really teaching you. But there's people like Cesar Santos, people like Lena Danya. I mean, even somebody like Bob Ross, somebody like Paul Taggart. I mean, there's so many amazing artists out there on the internet that share their secrets. So really, in this day and age, why go spend a bunch of money on an expensive art atelier, training school, college, when you can just learn to paint on your own from YouTube? I mean, it's obviously not going to be the same. You're not going to have the same guidance. You're not going to have the same, access to knowledge that you would at like a real art school. But I think there's something to be said for really buckling down and really having the determination, the willingness to learn how to do this on your own. So anyway, here we're starting with sort of the dead color layer that the old masters used to use. I didn't really perfect it in this painting by any means, but the old masters of the past, even some of the painters today, they would start with like what was called a dead flesh color, which is like a blue or like a monochrome grisaille type, bluish or greenish. And that would kind of give the painting more of like a lifelike vibe. You can kind of see with the contrast with the white, we're really starting to build up the thick paint layers on this stage. It's probably a little too thick. I wanted to sort of, I'm sort of doing like a reverse glazing technique. And I was under the impression that glazing, for those of you guys who had never heard of glazing, it's an oil painting technique where basically you build up really, really thin, transparent, excuse me, thin transparent layers of oil paint over thicker dried opaque layers of paint, and they sort of start to glow. And I got a frog in my throat all of a sudden. The painting starts to glow, and if you ever go to an old art museum or just any art museum, you see like a really masterful classical painting, you'll really see that it glows. It's almost like it's like glowing from within. It looks amazing. And I sort of achieved that effect on this painting, but I didn't really perfect it. So hopefully in future paintings, I'll sort of, we're going to be working with this technique. It's a lot different for me to work with this technique because I'm used to doing more alla prima, all-in-one-go type of paintings. I probably should have made this video a little bit longer, but the camera's already rolling, and my video footage is already, I guess I could maybe go over a little bit because I don't want to rush the process of explaining this. But yeah, it's oil painting is, it's something that you can do in one day if you prefer. You can do more like a Van Gogh style, or you can do like a more Leonardo da Vinci style and spend months and years on your paintings. That's all up to you. But I think there's something to be said for spending more time on your painting, building up more layers. There's more potential for a more realistic impression. I mean, there's obviously other painters that can make something look super realistic, awesome realistic in the course of a couple hours. I don't really know how to do that. That's the thing with the way that my style is. A lot of people see my paintings and like, oh, that's so beautiful, that's awesome, how do you do that? And I don't really know. I don't really know how I do it because I don't really exactly know what I'm doing. I mean, I like to think that I'm sort of developing a process. I like to think I'm developing my own style, and I think you can definitely see that when you look at an Andrew Marlowe painting. you can tell that that's an Andrew Marlowe painting. I mean, nobody knows who Andrew Marlowe is, in the grand scheme of things. But if if you were at an art gallery and they placed my paintings with a bunch of other artists, you wouldn't mistake my paintings for anybody else's art, and neither would you mistake anyone else's art for my paintings. So let's just kind of close out the video here, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you guys head over to the Instagram, Andrew Marlowe Artist, if you guys want to see more about my art. If you guys want me to, if you guys want to put in a comment, a request for somebody that you want me to paint, maybe a YouTube celebrity, maybe a movie star or something, I'd be more than happy to do that. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited about these new art videos that we're going to be doing, and we'll see you guys in the next video.